Go ahead, the recording started, Rich.
Okay, all right. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in to the monthly small business webinar series. We usually do have, this as Jill reminded me, we usually have it the first Thursday of the month, but because of the new year, we kind of kicked it back a week. So hopefully we get a few more people showing up today. We're going to have Deborah Jenkins presenting. She has over 2 decades of small business experience in the HR realm. She's going to be presenting on integrating the top strategies for 2025 planning HR. And I'd like to thank our sponsors real quick. We would like to thank the Montana Small Business Development Center, MSU Economic Development, Great Falls Development Alliance, and U of M. So with that, I think that's all I have to say, and then I'll kick it over to you, Deborah.
Thank you, Rich, and welcome everybody. Happy New Year. It's time to think about those new areas of HR that we need to give attention to. And so I was asked to present on where do we go? How do we start? Where do we begin? And with that, I have developed 5 strategies to start aligning our mindsets with, as well as 5 priority areas to consider. I do have the chat opened, so if anybody wants to ask questions as we go along, I do hope that this is interactive. I know that we've just got about 25 minutes or so, but do ask questions or give your insight as we go, or unmute, or whatever the case may be. And as mentioned, I have been in HR for many years, and so that is where I have started many a new year to start off on the right foot. And with that, I wanted to make mention that the information I'm bringing to you is from my own experiences in education and HR, not that of an attorney. So if anything of legal concern crosses your mind, do seek that out from your legal counsel. With this, I always start off with make sure that, we're gonna, if you haven't muted your phone or shut your door, do so. I just did myself with my phone, and, take care of whatever needs so that you can be present and engaged as we stick to the topic, and know that this is a safe zone too. There's no stupid questions, so do ask. Our objective will be to examine annual HR strategic planning steps, explore the top 5 HR areas to review, determine your organization's top HR priorities, discuss best practices that are right for your organization, because not everything is a cookie cutter, and understand where to go for more information. Our outline will follow this simple outline. Step 1 will be to discuss the HR planning steps, and the second area will be talking about the top 5 HR areas for strategic consideration, followed by a recap and a call to action for you. So with the steps, how do you even get going after such a hopefully a wonderful vacation for everybody? The first is to prioritize. There's so much involved in human resource management field that it can get overwhelming. And so making sure that you just stop and prioritize. And that's kind of what this whole concept today is about, is prioritizing the top 5. And we'll talk about those priority areas that I have deemed priority. They might not be yours, but it's something to give you to think about. So prioritize, and don't think you can tackle everything all at once. You need to start with the most important. The second is to pace yourself. It's not going to be done overnight. And so recognize due dates and utilize those as you're prioritizing your tasks, and just recognize that, you can't use up all of your energy right now. You've got 12 months to pace your energy level. So don't use it all up right now, but do pace yourself with the energy and your time commitment and your balance of life. 3, make sure you do your research. There's a lot of information out there that can be correct, or it can possibly be not so correct. And with that, I'm going to show you some areas where you can go to for researching best practices, for example, or legal compliance type items, but make sure that you do your own research. Even if I say the sky is blue, don't just believe me. Go to the reliable source and find that out just to make sure that it hasn't changed, because as we know, things keep evolving and changing, especially when there's legislative sessions. Step 4, collaborate. Don't do this all alone. Seek out input and advice and information from other people, whether that's within your organization or you have a network of peers outside of your organization. But do make sure to pull in the right people for the right areas of consideration. Step 5 is to compromise. Know that you might have a plan that just looks so perfect. It's all going to line up exactly how I think it's going to line up, but it doesn't. So recognize that you might have to adjust and to be agile and to compromise your vision or your mission of where you're trying to go. And the 6th step is to communicate. Communication is so vital, especially if you're feeling overwhelmed. You need to express that somehow, communicate that to others, communicate any pain points that you're experiencing on any specific items, communicate your wins, have some place to celebrate. So these are some steps when you have achieved a priority task. Find a way to share that information so others know you've done it. You did your thing. And it's not tooting your own horn, it is informing others. And that's always hard for people. Does anybody else have a problem saying, hey, I completed this task on time and it looks great? Tooting your own horn? I have a problem doing that, but it's work in progress. Are there any comments on these 6 steps that I mentioned before we dive into the 5 areas?
I'm pretty good. My coworkers are here. They'll back me up. I'm really good at talking about how good I am to them. So no problem.
Fantastic. We all think you're fantastic as well. And humor is a great step as well, incorporating that as we go along. Okay, well, if nothing else, we'll float into the next section. Or I put the flag that's flying away because it was so windy yesterday, and I thought a windy flag moving the pages would just make sense for our presentation today. The first priority area for human resource management to start the new year off right now is to look at law changes. Some are in the process, but some will have already been implemented. Have you updated maybe you don't pay your employees minimum wage, but there's a minimum wage increase for Montana. Have you done that? Those type of law changes. And with that, it's important to understand legislative changes, not just federally, but within the state that you're working in. Whether if you're here, you might be just working in Montana, but you might have employees working, say, in other states, surrounding states, Idaho, North Dakota, wherever you might have other employees. You need to be aware of every state and local changes too that are related to wage and labor laws. And with that, you can keep up on all of the legislation of what's coming up, and you can try and lobby. For myself, I got really overwhelmed trying to keep up on what might happen, because then sometimes you have to undo what you've planned ahead to do because it doesn't go through. So I try for sure just to keep up on what has happened and lobby where I feel is the most important. Here's some things some areas, some websites to keep your eye on. And I want to mention when it ends in .gov, it's normally a legit site. So you might have dol.org. That's probably not a legit site. So make sure that you look at .gov is important to know. DOL, Department of Labor and Industry, is where you're going to find a lot of information there. That's my go-to. And if I need to go elsewhere, there's links in there to go wherever you're seeking information. So if you need to go to irs.gov or any other department, usa.gov, it'll take you where you need to go. That's one of my main go-tos. Find your go-to. mt.gov, that's our state go-to. It houses all of the different departments and how you can reach wherever you are trying to seek information on, whether you need work comp related information or unemployment, or what is the new minimum wage, or can I hire a 12-year-old to run a handsaw in my shop? Those kind of questions. You'll find an avenue to that information from mt.gov. Another area that helps keep you abreast to what is coming up so that you can be prepared. As example, the exempt status change that went into effect earlier last year, and then it was reversed. I found kept up on all of that because of SHRM.org, SHRM, Society for Human Resource Management.org. There are local chapters you can join as well. The national chapter is where I usually find my information. You can be a member, you get more information that way, but you can also, just kind of go to that website and peruse about and get some information, but as a paid member, and it's not that expensive, you will get a lot more information. Make sure as you are going along to review and update and distribute, because it doesn't do any good if you don't distribute your, say, employee handbook to make sure that it is compliant. For example, if there's discrimination laws or a new protected class has been added, as in the past, there's been additions to sex gender identification, vaccination status within the state has been added and then removed. So, what does that look like? How does that affect your policies, your processes and procedures? Are they all compliant with the laws as the laws have changed? And there isn't normally a lot of huge changes but the main ones you'll want to make sure to cover. So review these documents, update them and distribute them, and make sure that you have mechanism to verify that you have distributed them and each employee has received the updated item. Any questions or comments on legal review? And you can see where that's a priority because there's hard stops on those deadlines or the implementation dates on those. The next is to look at your budget and see how you can make any changes or implement any programs that you might be interested in. If you are a business owner, then you might own the table. So there you go. You can establish and do whatever you need to do. But if you are an employee, if you're human resources, or whatever your title might be, find a way to work your way up to the table of that discussion and how you can make a request. Hey, we've never had an HR budget before, but I'd like to propose one because I'd like to implement a training program, and I anticipate it will cost us X amount to provide this valuable motivational employee retention program for our employees, and we'll save money in the long run because of the cost of turnover is so high that it'll retain employees, etc. How you can go about selling your place at the table and your insight. The next is, regardless if you had any contribution or not, is to review your budget and understand it. And there might be factors that you're not in control of, such as things that have changed. Like maybe your company you're losing sales for whatever reason, or your product is costing more. And just doing my personal budget this week, yes, I'm a overachiever trying to get it done early. But I had budgeted X amount for my home insurance, and then I got the bill today, and it went up $1,000, or 33%, I should say. Wow! So now I'm having to do some rethinking of my budget and how I can work around that and make some changes. So, and that includes asking questions. So I instantly reached out to my insurance agency and said, why? And how can we reduce this? Can you shop around for me? So understanding and reviewing is important. Follow your budget for your spending decisions. And as I mentioned, there might be changes. You might have less of a budget to work with this year than you did last year because of some different changes. Health insurance for your employees might have risen, or insurance for the building or whatever might have been a factor. And when you're making decisions, some of the decisions you're going to make on that involve the budget will be, can you give your employees raises, bonuses, or additional benefits, or even the same benefits, or are you going to have to make some changes? And perhaps you're going to need to make some staffing changes. And that we'll talk about in another area. Anything on the budget? Okay. We'll move on to our staffing strategies. This is what runs your organization. Determine your staffing needs. Easier said than done, but sometimes it takes reviewing. Are you overstaffed? If you're overstaffed, perhaps you need to make that tough call and terminate somebody's employment, or if you find that is necessary, and handle that off the start. Make sure as you're doing this to review, update, and communicate. So if you have, let's say you find, according to this organizational chart that you see on the screen here, we no longer see a need for our vice president. That position we're eliminating. We're going to save so much money by eliminating that position. And vice president doesn't really do anything anyway. That's what we've determined, because we've looked at the organizational chart, the budget. We need to reduce staff, and look at your organizational chart, look at the job description, see, well, what does the VP do? Really, there's nothing in there, so there's no need. And then look at the wages too. Communicate all of these changes, the elimination of the VP. Everybody's going to want to know that. So let everybody know. And that discussion will be in a moment here. And update job descriptions accordingly. Maybe there was 2 things the VP did that now somebody else needs to do. Maybe the finance person would do one and the HR would do another. And then wages accordingly. How are you going to make that adjustment? Any raises or not? And when you're looking at staffing, recruiting and retaining employees is important. So we need to understand, first off, the cost of employee turnover. If because we fired or eliminated the VP position, that ticked everybody off and now they've quit, you've got a lot of positions to fill. It's going to cost you a lot of money just to advertise and to go through the motions of paying others overtime, etc. And then also understand employee motivators. What's going to keep your people that you want to keep? And again, this is an overview. This isn't a deep dive into each of these areas. Any questions on staffing or comments? we'll move on to the fourth area, training and development. Again, prioritize topics. If you just say, here, let's do this, and you could come up with a ton of things to offer your employees and yourself for training and development. But you need to stop and prioritize accordingly, because it can consume the whole year and your whole budget too. So prioritize according to your needs. Find out where are your people at? What do they need? What do they want? And you can do that through surveys. You can determine it yourself and figure out, oh, we've had a huge amount of conflict lately. We need conflict resolution training for everybody, those kind of things. But these are some of the areas: compliance, technical skills in regards to doing their job efficiently, leadership skills, soft skills, behavioral skills like conflict resolution, etc. So prioritize the topic. Think about yourself and others. That can include your whole team, individual teams, or individuals. I just had a state agency contact me and say, okay, we've got a supervisor that we are implementing a PIP, a performance improvement plan. And part of that is to seek training on supervisory training. And so we just want that individual and the individual's supervisor to attend this training. So it was customized or individualized for that, that small, the twosome. But then in the spring, there was going to be a company-wide or organizational-wide training on that. So consider those. And any thoughts on training and development before I move to the fifth area? In my opinion, if you're wondering, in-person is the best because you can have that relational building component. Virtual is an option too, hallelujah, over the last number of years. Virtual is.
Deborah, do you have a typical percentage of a budget that might go to something like that?
It has been gradually increasing according to the human resource professionals that I've talked to. And probably 15 years ago, virtually no budget was accounted for training and development. Now, a lot of times they're allocating up to, say, 10%, which doesn't sound like a lot, but in the big scheme of things, it is a crucial component to employee retention, and employee retention should be and has become a high priority because we can't find employees to fill those jobs. So we want to retain our employees. So this is one of the top motivators to keep employees, to invest in them. Thanks for that question. Anything else? Okay. And the fifth area is communicate widely. Widely means not just to your neighbor sitting next door, not just to the managers, but to everybody in your organization. Making sure that you have effective and efficient communication modes, whether that is verbally communicating or in writing, emails or letters. There's a big difference. If communication is an issue within your organization, and honestly, I've been providing training and development for 15, 20 years now. And some of that was internal. A lot of it has been on my own since 2013 is when I started providing training and development to other companies as an outsourced provider. The communication, when we drill it down, where is the problem lying? Communication, number one, and misunderstandings per personalities. So it's a huge area to consider is, are you communicating widely and are you doing it well? Is the message being received the way you intended it to be received? And that goes on to our next bullet point is it tactful and appropriate? Are you talking to just an individual or to a whole group? And be very cautious I don't want to get too deep into the weeds of this because we could spend a good hour on just communication. But are you being very cautious when you hit that reply all button? It can be dangerous to do. So be very careful. There's a huge consideration to be made when you have transparency. A lot of, that's great, but there's confidential information too, personal information that you need to use tact and appropriateness for. And inclusion matters. Make sure that you're giving this meeting invitation to everybody except Joel. Well, how is Joel going to feel if he doesn't get this meeting invitation? His morale is probably going to go down, and he could potentially use the consideration that maybe you're discriminating against Joel. So think about that and use checklists. Use those, use them, so that you don't miss anybody, because inclusion is a huge consideration, especially if you're called out on the carpet for missing somebody purposefully or perceived purposefully. Any comments on communications? Okay, I'll go through the recap and your call to action, and then we'll open it up for just general comments. Recap the steps that I mentioned. Prioritize, pace yourself, do your research, collaborate with others, be ready to compromise and communicate. And these are the top 5 areas that I recommend you consider. Reviewing the law changes and updating appropriately what needs to be updated. Review and set your budget and follow it. Do your staffing strategy plan for if you need to remove or add or what you need to do with staff. Provide your training and development program or set that and communicate widely. And with that, again, do your homework on law changes and current compliance. Review, revise, and communicate documents and processes, procedures. Set and follow your budget. Determine your staffing needs and decide on your training and development program. And again, communicate widely with follow up through accountability. It's a lot said in half an hour, 25 minutes, but I have time to discuss any of these, even if you have a different priority that you think should be addressed, like right after the gate on the new year. Does anybody have one to add?
I don't have anything to add, but I got a couple questions for you, if that's all right.
Yes, please.
So, what are your thoughts either for or against a small company just completely outsourcing their HR to either someone like you or one of these online firms? What does that look like? Is that recommended?
That's a very good question, and I've been asked that from different clients throughout the last couple of years. It's called a PEO organizations that became kind of a little popular about 4 or 5 years ago, in which a lot of organizations were just going towards their outsourcing human resources, but more than 50% of them are that I know of have then aborted that and gone back to hiring in-house. And the reason is that there are certain areas that you can outsource. There are, it can kind of be a cookie cutter situation. Payroll, for example, that's pretty black and white, and the law, dictates how you process payroll. So that's one that is easier, but that does not negate the obligation or the responsibility that you have as a small business owner to communicate and make decisions. I have had a lot of requests for employee handbooks to be written or revised, and I can't make the decisions for you. It's the business leadership team needs to make those judgment calls and those decisions. So there's some things that you just simply can't, here you go, please take care of it for me. It's an involved thing. So I recommend that you really look at that carefully before you completely outsource. I do recommend certain areas you can outsource, and training and development is one area that, for example, when it depends on the type of training. If you have technical skills training, that's probably internal. You need somebody internal as your trainer to train on your program or how to run a machinery. That would be internal. But externally, you can outsource general content. And sometimes it's a lot better to have that come from an outside source than it is internally. For example, the conflict resolution that I mentioned earlier, maybe the HR internal is too deep in the weeds in that conflict situation, where bringing somebody from the outside, whoever you bring in, whether you have a PEO or an independent trainer come in and provide that training, can make a world of difference. So the answer to that is it depends.
And then when you review kind of your workload with companies, are there one of these areas you spend more time on than most? Is that your question?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And honestly, when I pivoted from working as a HR professional in all of the different areas and opened up my own, business to provide services for businesses, small and large, my whole vision changed because I thought I would be helping small employers with their day-to-day questions on HR matters. And what I'm finding is that I'm working with organizations on their training and development is 90% of what my requests are. And I'm finding that that's where I want to be. So it's kind of a river that has taken me to where I wanted to go anyway, and what is in need. So to create and provide your own training for your leadership team or your workforce takes a lot of time, effort, and if done poorly, it can cause a lot of harm. And so that is the main focus that I have. And executive consulting and coaching is the second highest that I am working with.
Thanks.
Thanks for that question.
Yeah. Any other questions out there for Deborah? Give the old 4-second awkward pause here.
Tick, tick, tick.
Well, if there's no other questions, and I don't see any in the chat, we'll wrap it up. This was recorded, and we'll push this recording out to people. Thank you so much, Deborah, for presenting today. A lot of good stuff. And next month, February 6th, join us. We're going to have Patty Fleming from the Montana Manufacturing Extension Center, which is a really unique program that is designed to help manufacturing businesses in the state. So join us for that one on February 6th. And with that, we will sign off. Thank you, everybody, for attending, and have a good day.
Thanks, Rich, and everybody. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.